Welcome to the Transform My Dance Studio podcast, the only podcast for dance studio owners, where each week we bring you business growth strategies to help you increase your profits, impact the lives of more students, while ensuring you get back some time to have a little life outside of the studio. It's time for you to become the go-to studio in your area. Now, here's your host, founder of the Dance Studio Owners Association, Clint Salter.
Hey there, dance studio owners. It's Clint here, and welcome to another episode of the Transform My Dance Studio podcast. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to today's guest, who is a money strategist for business owners. His name is Justin Krane, and I was introduced to Justin a few months ago by one of my friends, Robert, and he actually came to speak. He was one of our guest speakers at our Inner Circle retreat in New York City, was like the favorite speaker across the weekend, and I still hear about him from all of our members that saw Justin. They're like, oh my God, Justin makes understanding the money side of my business so easy. And guys, I know as studio owners, it's tricky, right? Because we're so like right brain creative, but then when we have to jump into that left brain analytical side of things, it gets a little bit hard. So I said to Justin, look, you have to come on this podcast and talk to our studio owners about dealing with money. What are the finances they should be looking at? What are the reports they need to be getting into, and really breaking it down. So I am so pumped to have this guy on our interview today. Hello, Justin. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Clint. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to be on this podcast because I've spent some time with you and your community, and I feel like now I really understand the inner minds and the inner workings of dance studio owners. So I'm really looking forward to diving in.
Yeah, can't wait. And I mean, look, Justin's done some huge things. He's on television. He writes for amazing magazines and newspapers. And so, Justin, give us like a 1 minute snapshot of who you are and who you help.
Yeah. So I'm a certified financial planner. So that's like a financial advisor, right? Yeah. And I invest people's money. I help them plan for retirement. I've got clients. I manage close to $100 million for my private clients. And I started to dig into their business finances because a lot of them are business owners. And I was like, no one's really helping them with their money strategy and their business. They got the bookkeepers that like send them the reports. They got their accountants, which they like want to sometimes throw up in a brown paper bag when the accountant calls for taxes and stuff. And there's no real strategy. And they're like, well, what do I have to do in business to like take a vacation? How much do I have to do in sales to put my kid through school? Or how do I pay off this debt? And what I really found, Clint, was that at the end of the day, the success of someone's business is going to be the primary driver of their wealth and of funding their personal goals. So I'm about advancing, making more money, having fun while we're doing it. I'm not about cutting back so that we can live the life we want to when we're 85. I'm not into that. I'm into now.
Yeah, totally. And I think, and all of the statistics and reports that are out there now say that we are a lot more about living in the moment and investing in experiences, which I think is great. I mean, I do that. I'm investing in traveling and concerts and amazing conferences. And so gone are the days, well, I believe anyway, where it's like I can't have that coffee every day because when I'm 85, I need money for my retirement. So we're definitely on the same page there. Justin, I want to jump in and ask you, like you talked then about kind of what success looks like. Is a lot of it just not, business owners not understanding and our studio owners understanding like what they want to achieve and where they want to go?
Yeah, I think they have to look at it as if, number one, they're running a business. Like for everyone listening, I know you love running I know you love dance and teaching and seeing the kids and the parents get involved. And that's got to be very, very rewarding. I just want to make sure that you have money in the bank so that you can do what you want and provide for your family and not feel like you're stressed out all the time where you're like robbing Peter to pay Paul or you're just dealing with major cash flow issues. Because I don't want that. It's not fun. Then it makes the good stuff turn into like the boring headache, pain in the butt stuff.
Yeah. And also like getting on that treadmill and never getting off, right? Like working more and more and more hours, not making any more money, and then it's like, when does this end? And so
Yes.
I want to jump into the numbers side of things, because what I loved about, your presentation to our Inner Circle members was you really just kind of broke down, guys, you know what? These are the figures that you need to be looking at. So as a studio owner, if we were starting from scratch and we kind of don't know what numbers we should be looking at every week or every 2 weeks or every month, what are those reports that we need to be paying attention to?
Okay, so I got it all ready to go. I just want to make sure that while you're listening, don't worry about taking every single data point that I give you and feel like you have to do it all. Just listen to it and then go back and listen to the podcast again, and you can take some notes. So the first one is I'm going to say gross profit. This is your sales. This is what you get paid from the parents or the people that pay you, right? It's your sales, but it's after you pay the dance instructors that work for you. So it's your sales minus the amount of money that you have to pay the instructors. That's what's called your gross profit. So you need to track that. And if you have a bookkeeper, have them email this number to you at least once a month. Because if you're not making a markup, a good enough markup on what you're paying the instructor, right, you're not going to have any money to run your business or to take money out of your business to live. So that number is big. The gross profit number is on your profit and loss statement.
Yeah. So guys, just to reiterate, that is, let's say you've got a group class going on, okay? That's your income that's coming in from that group class. You minus what the teacher is costing you for that class, and then you get your gross profit. First step, right, Justin? Correct.
No, it's now a lot of you are not just teaching classes. Maybe you're selling clothing in your store or your studio. Maybe you have some dance competitions that you have a group of dancers go to. All of that other stuff. What I found is a lot of you are not marking that up enough to make a profit off of that. I don't want you breaking even with 10 people that are taking, like a dance competition, like class or whatever you want to call it, and that you're actually marking that part up. You're marking up what you have to pay the teachers. You're marking up the travel, the food, the venue location, all of that stuff. I've seen 4 dance studio owners' books, and I've seen that they're not marking that up enough. So what's happening is the cash at the end of the month is killing them because they're not marking up everything by enough to cover their overhead.
Yeah, one thing there, Justin, I want to ask, because I'm sure our studio owners are thinking it, is they're going to themselves, but, I can't charge more for that. My parents won't pay more for that, that particular service or product. What do you say to that?
I say it's all about positioning, and it's all about how the buyer makes decisions and how they compare your price from someone else's. So the way that we make decisions when we buy is we look at your fee. Let's just say it's $50 per class. And then maybe we'll compare it to another studio, but we'll also basically just look and see what we're getting. But what if you gave them 2 prices instead of 1? What if you gave them something that was a little bit more money, which allows you to raise your price, but offers way, way more value, where they feel like they're getting a deal and you're still making money? For example, if 1 class is $50, maybe 2 classes is $85. And then maybe you're throwing in some shirts or some free tickets to something. So, yeah, you have to charge enough to make a profit, but give your parents a choice between just 2 options, and you'll see that your conversions will go up as long as that second option seems really, really attractive and that you're still making money on that second option.
Yeah, perfect. I love it. So you've talked about gross profit. Then what else are we looking at?
So that's very important. The next one is cash. Now, we all know that we have to have money in the bank, and it's important, especially in the summer times. I think between maybe June and September, most of your business kind of goes down. The kids go to camp. They might not take as many classes. Is that right, Clint?
Yeah, that's definitely right. Guys, if you're in Australia or New Zealand, this is your summer break around Christmas to the beginning of February.
Okay, that's right. I got to get the seasons right. So we need to build up cash. So for that period of time, when you're getting into the summer, you definitely have to have at least 1 month's expenses in the bank. Ideally 2. So now you're probably thinking, okay, well, what are my expenses? So what you need to do is email your bookkeeper and say, what are my monthly expenses? What are my normal monthly run-of-the-mill expenses? I'm talking about rent. I'm talking about cleaning. I'm talking about paying staff, not the person that works at your front desk, if you have that. I'm not talking about the instructors. I'm talking about overhead, because that overhead is going to be there whether there are kids in your studio or not. You might not have to pay the instructor if there's not a class, but you will still have rent. You will still have other bills that you have to pay. So I need you to know what that number is every month. And then I need you to shoot for at least having 1 month, possibly 2 months expenses in the bank. I'm talking like separate bank account that you can't touch, that you only touch during those lean months in the summer. Can I expand on that for a minute, Clint? Because I think I spoke about this, but I really want to make sure that people get this. Having money in the bank allows you to say no. It allows you to say no to things that you don't really want to do, that are not profitable, where a student or a parent just might not be a good fit, or you might be thinking of going to a dance show that just is not right, but you're doing it for the money, but it's like such a bad experience. Building up cash in the bank allows you to say no, to open up for the opportunities where you actually can say yes, because it really feels good.
I love that. And that just feels so light. I'm sure like our studio owners are listening are like, yeah, you know what? I do take that angry, annoying parent because they're going to, help pay for that summer break. Or they're, whereas we really want to be saying, you're going to be a nightmare. No, I don't want you in my dance studio.
Because it ruins the feel, the experience of everyone else, your staff. I mean, it could be major bad. So if you're trying to get 1 month or 2 months expenses in the bank, then what you're going to have to do, and you can do this, you don't need a bookkeeper to do this. You can just take out a piece of paper and a pen and list out all of your expenses. Look at your bank account. You can look at a profit and loss statement because those expenses are in there, and you can just start listing them. But getting back to the question about cash, you guys have to have money in the bank. You need to have cash in there. And there's a report for that also. It's called the Statement of Cash Flows. I don't want to get too technical, but it's there. And you can look at it there as well.
Awesome. Great additional resource there. I want to just jump in because you've talked about having a bookkeeper a little bit. And so for our studio owners that might not know exactly what a bookkeeper does, or maybe they've got, one of the main things people say to me is like, I've got a bookkeeper, but I don't think they're doing their job. And then they say, actually, I don't know what they're meant to be doing. What should we be looking at our bookkeeper actually doing for us? And what are some things that we need to be on the lookout for to get a good one into the business?
Well, first of all, you want one that's proactive. That's going to take a sincere interest in your business, that will ask you, like, tell me about your business. Why are you doing this? What lights you up about that? Just so you can get the buy-in from the bookkeeper that they really want to help you. Then on the flip side, you want to hire someone that has high attention to detail and high, strong follow-through skills, where they're going to follow through and give you what you need. So what are they going to give you? They're the ones that are going to give you the financial reports. And if you're probably thinking, okay, I got to get my head out of the sand. Yeah, this is the part of the podcast where I'm like, you got to get your head out of the sand. You are running a business. Your bookkeeper will email you the reports, but they need to explain to you, or you need to know what to look for in those reports. You don't have to know everything, but the bookkeeper needs to be emailing those to you at least once a month. And when you're working with a bookkeeper, you need to have a very, very clear set of standards in how many hours per month they're going to work for you. And when they hit a certain amount of time, they're not doing more work that you're not aware of. Because the last thing you want is a bill for like $1,000 when you only thought you were going to pay $300.
Yeah, exactly. It's so crucial. Would you suggest, should a studio, let's say a studio is operating with like 50 students, is there a time to bring a bookkeeper on board into your business, or should it be like straight away?
It depends. It depends if sometimes the spouse of the studio owner will do the books because he or she will just do that and that's what they like. if you can afford to bring one in, I'm sure you're aware of the whole knowledge is power. Like, you need financial clarity. If you know, you've heard the expression, you got to know your numbers. I would basically say you got to understand your numbers. If you can understand them, then you can make better decisions. So I think it's a good investment to have one, but maybe in the beginning, you have someone that just works for 2 to 4 hours a month. They do some of the data entry. Maybe you have an admin do the rest. But then you got to start tracking those key important things: the gross profit, the cash, and ultimately your net profits as well.
Yeah, so let's jump into the net profits then. What is it, and how do we calculate it, and how do we use it? How do we use those numbers in our business?
So it's a lot harder to do it where I'm just speaking to people and they can only listen to me versus see what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So the net profits are basically how much money the business is making after all of the bills are paid. Mm-hmm. But I want to make sure that you understand something. The way that I want you to think about net profits, I want you to include the expenses or the money that you take out of the bank for your personal bills. So for instance, if the business made a net profit of $5,000 after all of the expenses were paid, but then you need to take out $3,000 to live, I want you to think of it as if the business made $2,000.
Yes.
Because the business has to pay someone to run it. And if you're not taking a salary, you might not be. Someone has got to manage the business, and there needs to be a line item in there for an expense for a business owner to have a life. So this is where a lot of you can get tripped up. You'll take a lot of money out of your bank account because you have a high personal expenses, which drains the cash in your business. So maybe you got to go look at your personal money and see if you can get those expenses down. But those net profits, again, it's how much money you make after you pay everyone. And I want you to take it up one more level and think about factoring in the distributions that you take from your account. Like, I just visualize it. You're logging into your bank. You've got your business account, and then you just transfer the money from your business to the personal. Everyone does it. It's just like part of running a business. That money that you're transferring, that's what I'm talking about. Think of that as an expense. And then when you look at profits, you'll want to make sure that you can at least make a 10% profit on your gross profit. It's hard to explain, but maybe I can give an example. Can I go with an example, Clint?
Let's do an example.
Okay. So let's just pretend that you make $10,000 from all of the parents paying for your kids, the kids to come to the studio. But you have to pay the dance instructors $3,000. So now all of a sudden your gross profit is $7,000.
Yep.
And now let's say that your rent and all of that other stuff cost you $4,000. So now you're down to a $3,000 net profit. But if you have to take out $2,000 to live, I'm going to say calculate that $2,000 in there. Now you're really at $1,000. So that's the calculation that I want you to go through. I want the business to make money net after you pay yourself something and all of your expenses and your staff and everyone.
Yeah, I love this. And that's really easy, guys. I know Justin said, listen, but when you re-listen to this, write down, the numbers, because I know so many of you, including myself, are very visual, and I've just written that down as well so I can see it. And it's really powerful. Justin hits on a really important point about including what you pay yourself in this. Justin, what are your thoughts around, paying yourself a wage every week or every month versus that kind of, transfer over when you need it methodology?
I think it's great. I think it sets a priority that you need to be paid as a business owner. And then what it really is going to do is it's going to make you think twice about all of the other expenses in your business. Are they worth it? Because if you're paying yourself first and you're taking that money off the top, right, then there's left to run the business. Well, you got to look at those expenses in the business and be like, do I really need to have 2 administrative people? Maybe I just need to have 1. Do I really need to pay someone for an 8-hour-a-day job? Maybe it's 4 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
You follow me? Then you really start to look at the expenses, and that's where you start to find hidden money that was always there, except you just spent it because you had it. at the time versus taking it from the top.
So important. How often do you think we should really be kind of like plowing through these expenses? Because I know for us in our business, we do what we call our subscription audit every 90 days because, everything's subscription these days. And so we're like kind of going through going, oh, we don't use that anymore, or we could use this technology instead. Let's get rid of that. I mean, how often should we be going through those expenses with like that fine-tooth comb, like seeing where the money's going?
Well, I think every quarter is great. Yeah. And I think that, it's also when do you have the time? Like if you have more time in the summer because it's just not happening for dance people, then do it then. But what's really, really important, and I didn't realize this until I actually went through it and put myself like really in the mind of a dance studio owner. And tell me if I'm onto something, Clint. So we're going to go with the US calendar and then we can flip it for Australia. But when the kids go back to school in like late August or September, the owner has to market the dance studio for like a month to 6 weeks to get everyone to re-enroll. Then by the time everyone re-enrolls, it's like the end of September, early October. Then you got a lot of people enrolled through the holidays. Some people may take off. Then you've got to get them back to coming back in January. It may take 2 or 3 weeks to get them back in January. Then you basically have got great cash flow from January till about May or June. And then all of a sudden it dies from June to August. Mm-hmm. And then you got to start all over again in September by onboarding people. So really what I'm talking about when you're looking at these expenses is your revenue might not come in as quickly as it needs to. The conversion or the sales cycle of people coming on could stink for the first month in August. So when you're looking at those expenses, try to plan in for the dead time, especially in the summer, and then for that period of time where you got to ramp up and get people to recommit or re-up. And if you can figure out how to do that quicker, in other words, where it doesn't take you a month to get everyone back from school and back from going, then your cash flow will be much better.
Yeah, totally. And guys, if you're a part of the association, or, we talk about this a lot in the inner circle, is that we get you re-registering, re-enrolling at the end of April for the new season so that you don't have this kind of sticky point in September when you're freaking out trying to fill classes and bringing everyone back in. I mean, I think, and a great point that Justin's really highlighted is that that business model that most of the studio owners have is flawed. And we can really make it a lot more efficient and effective by essentially running a year-round model.
I love it.
But thanks for sharing that because that's super important. So Justin, when we get these numbers down, when we've got our gross profit, we're on top of our cash, we've identified our net profits, what do we do with that data?
You start to plan. And what I would do if I were you is you can create campaigns, marketing campaigns. You can start to make strategic investments in your business. You can say, okay, I'm going to invest X $1,000 into something where I think I can make some money on it, or I'm going to look to hire someone in. You can then be intentional with what you want to do. Rather than just reactive, you can actually come up with a marketing plan and you can say, all right, I'm going to invest this much this month, this much that month. And it's just, it's so much more powerful when you know how much money you have and where you can see how much is coming in. Once I have that, I would be playing offense and I would be like trying to grow my business major once I have that.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, you just make you really make better decisions. Occasionally when I have calls with people and they're like, I need help, should I make this decision? I'm like, what is your money telling you? Because I think we really need to go back and look at our finances regularly to see where we're at, to be able to make smarter, more calculated decisions.
Yeah, because if you're asking yourself, where did the money go? If you guys are asking, you're like, I thought I had it, it's gone, like poof.
Yeah.
Then that answer is on the statement of cash flows. That's that third report. That answer is the statement of cash flows. It's there. And, I can show you where it is. Your bookkeeper can show you where it is. That one report will tell you everything. everything that you need to know about where the money went.
Yeah, exactly. Justin, if we start making money, right? We're doing well. Hopefully, they're members of the association, or they're working with you, or they're in the inner circle, and they're having success in their business, and they're building some money up in the bank. Investing is a conversation that. I think if you haven't been brought up in a family, I mean, I wasn't, where, I didn't have a single mother. She wasn't investing in stocks or anything else. And so I've had to self-educate, bringing people into my wisdom circle to help me around these things. But how then can we kind of use our money to make it really work for us?
Well, it's a great question. I think before I answer that, it's very important for everyone to plan that their studio is an asset and you want to make it saleable. You don't have to sell it right away, but I want you to have I want you to own an empire that you could sell to someone or a group of people. Because what you're doing that's cash flow. And last time I checked, people buy things that cash flow. So think of your business as an asset. That's number one. But on top of that, you must diversify away from your business. You cannot just invest in your business. You have to diversify and invest in other things. It could be real estate. It could be mutual funds. It could be another business. It could be a retirement plan, maybe for your business. I would look at some point, you have to begin to diversify away from your business. I'm not saying that you shouldn't invest in your business. I'm all for that. But at the end of the day, you have to hedge your investments, because what if you can't sell your business for the price that you think you're going to sell it for? And then you're going to leave a ton of money on the table for what you could have been doing by putting some money away for your future.
Yeah. I love it. It's so good. Justin, I want to dive into some of the mistakes. I mean, you've worked with a couple of our, inner circle members now. You came to our event. What are some of the mistakes that you see studio owners making when it comes to their finances? And I feel like we've touched on a couple of them already.
Yeah.
Just to kind of highlight them even further.
Yeah. Let me just preface it by saying I believe in a balance. I believe in saving. You have to save for your future, but I also believe in living for today. And I think the mistake that a lot of dance studio owners make is some of their costs are just too high. And these costs that are too high can be rent. And their rent is too high versus what their gross profit is. So let me make sure you guys get that. If your business is making, let's say your business makes $10,000 a month, but you got to pay the instructors $3,000. So your gross profit is $7,000. But if your rent is like $4,000, it's too high. It's too big of a percentage. So ideally, your rent is 30% of your gross profit. Now, I know that's a weird percentage and all that, but a big mistake, Clint, the rent is too high of an expense. It's killing people because it's every month, and especially in June, July, and August, their rent is high and the income isn't there. That's why you need to have that cash there. So one mistake, the rent is too high. The second mistake is when the dance studio owners invest in their business, the time that it takes for the money to come back and cash flow is too long. It's too long. It's just too much time.
So give me an example. Are you talking about, putting a marketing campaign out there and then that money doesn't come in, or?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one where, like one that I've seen that's worked is like Google ads or Facebook ads. Those are pretty quick. You do an ad, you see if you get a conversion, and then that's it. Yeah. But if you wanted to do like a whole event at your dance studio, and it's going to be a party with networking and a mixer and all of that kind of stuff, and for some reason you just can't convert people right away, you've put out that money for the event, you don't really convert people, I'm just saying hypothetically, for 2 months, maybe 3 months, then you've tied up that money and it's gone and it could have been used for something else. So what the mistake is the return of that investment needs to come back quicker. That's number one. Number two, risking too much money for not enough return. And I always like to use this 3 times return number. If you're going to invest $1,000 in something, whatever it is, I'd like you to make 3,000 off of it. If you don't feel like you can make $3,000, then you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I think that's great. What else? What else do you think? I mean, when it comes to rent, I guess this is a big one that's come up a lot. But what about for that studio owner that has, signed a 5-month lease and, they're in their second year and they've just heard you say your rent's too high? What can they do?
Did you say they signed a 5-month or a 5-year lease?
5-year lease.
5 year.
5 months.
Oh, okay.
But definitely 5 months.
So what you got to get creative, and you got to lease out that space or see if you can bring in private instructors for anything with that space. You could have office meetings there. You can have you can rent it out for events. Maybe you could sublet part of it. I've heard some owners where they'll actually, because the kids come after school, you can like partition off part of the studio and make it kind of like cubicles with some office space, if you will, and bring in some tutors to tutor the kids before and after their lessons. You got to get creative with that space, because what I've seen this with 3 or 4 of your students, is that they try to negotiate with the landlord, and the landlord is very strong and tough, and they don't budge.
Yeah.
They just won't go. They will not drop it. So, if the landlord has kids, maybe you give their kids some free lessons and you get a deal on the rent. But you got to get creative on that. And you cannot be caught off guard. This is another thing I've seen. You cannot be caught off guard with the landlord raising the rent major, and there's no warning of it. There's no like period of time where they could say, there's no notification. That's what I'm trying to say. So make sure that you have a clear understanding with your landlord what the rent is and how much, what the max they can raise it by. Yeah,
that's really great advice, because it has happened with people where they go, oh my God, the landlord has just raised the rent, like they've increased it by a quarter.
Yes.
Over summer.
Yes, and you know what? For the students, or not the students, for the owners that have 100 students, 500 students, when your rent is raised, and you have so much more to lose if you change locations. It's not like you could just go from one building to another and everyone will come with you. It's a big risk. It's a very big risk to move locations. People will just drop off, and that just happens. So there's just as much of a risk of losing what you have as there is with high rent. So when you make a decision and you're going to sign a longer term lease with the studio, you need to make sure that you can afford it and that you're planning to be there for the long term, and that the landlord is like a good guy or gal and they want to work with you and they want to have a good partnership with you.
So such good advice. Justin, we're out of time. As you know, I could talk, and we have to.
I know. You and we could talk forever.
Which is not a bad thing. Where can our studio owners to get more information about what you're up to?
Yeah. I want everyone to go to this site. It's called cashflowgift.com. Cashflowgift.com. And in there is going to be an action guide. Just 3 things that you need to do based on what I've discussed and spoken about. Because you're probably like, oh my God, I'm freaking out with all this numbers, money stuff. But anyone can do it. You guys can totally do it. You've got a great advisor in Clint to help you get there. And if you implement these 3 actions, I think you'll come away and be like, okay, you know what? I got this. I can do it.
Yeah.
So go to cashflowgift.com.
And you've got your book as well that just came out, Money, You Got This. Where can they grab a copy of that?
Just go to Amazon. Just type in Money, You Got This.
Awesome, guys. Make sure you pick up that book. You've probably seen from today, Justin just has a really great way of breaking down the numbers that is like super simple. I'm sure we've all had that accountant where you kind of like glaze over and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Justin just gives you the stuff that you need to really make those smart decisions in your business, and so that you can understand the numbers because it is so crucial. Justin, thank you so much. Such a valuable conversation as always. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. For all the resource links from the show and to receive access to our free dance studio growth training, make sure you visit transformmydancestudio.com.